and welcome to this forum for candidates for the Fremont Union High School District Board of Trustees. The forum is sponsored by the League of Women Voters of Cupertino Sunnyvale. I am Roberta Hollimon. I'm a member of the League of Women Voters, and I will be the moderator for tonight's forum. Candidates will be giving a 2-minute opening statement, and then they will have 1.5 minutes to answer questions from the audience, and we will have 2 minutes for a closing statement. Questions will be submitted in writing by the audience. Candidates for the high school board are Kathryn Ho, Avie Katz, Don MacKenzie, Barbara Nunes, and Bill Wilson. And so we'll start with opening statements, and Kathryn Ho.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Kathryn Ho, and I'm running for re-election for the Fremont Union High School Board. Thank you for coming. We are here because we all care about our community and the education of our children. About 10 years ago, when my oldest son was a student at Lynbrook High School, I got a call from the principal's secretary asking me whether I will be attending a bilingual committee that evening. Little did I know, after that evening's meeting, that leads me to 10 years involvement in this community and in our children's education. After that meeting, I was elected to be the chairperson of the bilingual committee, and later on I became the PTA president. During those years, I worked very hard with the teachers, the principals, the parents. I tried to become a bridge to bring the bilingual committees into the school, and through many food and songs and music and many meetings, we become to know each other. We hear each other's heart and the dreams. And also as a high school counselor, I was able to understand the students' struggle when they are in high school. They're trying to find their identity. They're trying to find who they are, their significance. And they are struggled through many difficult times in the high school years. And in the last 8 years as a school board member, I learned how to balance between academic achievement and nurturing the whole child. I also learned how to balance between the law and compassion. I have always been a very independent school board member. I can stand firm on what I believe, not to give in to special interest group. I have always been accessible and listen to the community. Thank you.
Mr. Katz?
I'd like to thank everybody for attending. My name is Avie Katz, and I'm board president. I've served on this board for 8 years, and despite its challenges of the job, I want to serve for another 4 because I come from a family that is committed to education. My dad served as a school board member in a little town in Wisconsin, and he inspired me to pursue a career in education. I became a teacher and spent 32 years in education. For 23 of those years, I worked with at-risk youth. Early in my career, I taught in the Fremont Union High School District, and I recently retired from classroom teaching, but my heart is still in education. For 23 of those years, what I worked with at-risk youth. From the onset, I sought to bring our community together. Unfortunately, my efforts have been undermined by politics, professional animosities, and personal attacks on me and my family. Nevertheless, I will not be dissuaded. As a school board member, I've worked very hard to promote open communication about diversity in the district, efforts that took an unfortunate setback in the wake of some inappropriate comments made by officials in a notorious Wall Street Journal article. Nevertheless, we must move on. Growing up, I had the experience of living in a community where my family was part of a minority group, so I can relate to many of the challenges that members of our local community face. Of course, I am particularly proud of the fact that over the course of my tenure on the school board, our district has consistently ranked very highly in student achievement.
Thank you. Mr. MacKenzie?
Yeah, I'm Don MacKenzie. And I've been speaking recently about the need for change on our board. And people have asked me, what's the big deal? Each morning our kids go to school, teachers teach. We have these terrific schools. We really aren't concerned about a superintendent being fired or disagreements on the board. Businesses can coast for a while, but we don't live in a static environment. Each year new students arrive, and each year they come in different numbers, bringing different backgrounds and having different goals, and they expect different classes and services from our schools. The skills needed by our graduates change as our society and economy change. We need to plan today and design programs and remodel buildings and train teachers to maintain our high standards 5 years from now. Our top executive is juggling 2 very demanding jobs. Every manager in the district, and there aren't very many, is refocusing efforts to keep things running smoothly in the short term while also making time for investigations and lawyers. Something has to give, and what gets deferred is planning for the future and improving our programs. We're 2 months through the school year, and we don't yet have specific goals under our long-range plan. You may not have students in our schools today, so you'll worry about high school when your child gets there. Maybe your children are older, so you won't care about schools until your property values decline. Maybe you work in our high-tech companies, and you won't care until our vibrant economy moves offshore due to a shortage of skilled workers. It will be too late. No organization, including our schools, can run on autopilot for long. Educated people are the foundation of our society. Many of our students will vote with you in this election. You should care that the person in the next voting booth is educated and understands and respects your point of view. If you care about any election, you should care about this school board election. Read my ballot statement, review my website, and vote for teamwork in our district.
Thank you. Barbara Nunes.
Well, good evening. Some of you may recognize me. Maybe I was your teacher or your principal. You can't hold that against me, however. I have 37 years of experience in education, and I have a passion for education, and that's really why I'm running for re-election. I've been part of a process that's developed a long-range plan that's addressed teaching strategies and tried to meet the needs of diverse students, trying to involve parents and the community in communication and developing resources that can be used effectively to meet these goals. That's part of the kinds of experience that I can bring to the board to pull those kinds of things together in the future. Also, one of my strengths, I believe, is academics. As a principal of Cupertino High School, we received, through a lot of involvement of the staff in developing leadership, 2 Distinguished School Awards and a Blue Ribbon Award, and we were very proud of that. That means that we were involved in academics and extracurricular activities with high standards for achievement. And the other kind of thing that I'm really interested in is accountability. That means accountability to the community and community involvement. It means that we should be using our resources to meet those goals of the long-range plan. I was very proud to be the co-chair of the parcel tax when we were putting that together to try to underwrite the kind of funds that we needed in our community to keep our good schools even greater. My business background makes me responsible for fiscal decisions that use your tax dollars wisely. I feel that we should be matching budget appropriations to the long-range plan. We should be retaining and employing a diverse set of employees to match our population. We should keep our lines open for communication and prepare our students after high school. Experience, academics, and accountability. Those are the 3 things I think I can bring to the board.
Thank you. Bill Wilson.
Okay, well, I'm Bill Wilson. First of all, I want to thank the League of Women Voters for organizing this, and thank Roberta for being the moderator, and thank all of you for coming or watching at home. I'd like to tell you a little bit about myself and why I'm running for this very important position. My academic background is in mathematics. I got a degree in mathematics from Princeton University and a PhD from Harvard. After that, I taught mathematics for 9 years before going off to do technical work and research in other areas in industry. After moving up through management, I decided to do the Silicon Valley thing and start a company on my own. That company I ran as CEO for 10 years before negotiating its acquisition by an internet company back in 1998. At that point, I served as an executive there before moving on and deciding I wanted to take some time, a more flexible schedule, helping some small companies get going, but taking time for some volunteer activities, including the fact that I decided I was ready for a really challenging job being president of the local Little League, which gave me an insight into another aspect of working with parents and kids. I think this is a very critical time for our school district. I'm running because our school district deserves a board that's worthy of the high standards of the teachers, students, and parents in this district. We need a board that works together as a team with a focus on education and not on peripheral activities. We need a board that looks at the fiscal implications and other implications of actions before they undertake those so that they know what they're getting into. In other words, I think the board needs a fresh perspective. I believe my background in business will help us with that focus, will help us with prioritization, will help us stretch those dollars, which we so need to stretch because we are dealing with less funding in surrounding districts. We have to use all of those dollars as wisely as possible to get the best possible results. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And now we'll start with the questions from the audience. I have an awful lot of questions up here. Many of them are duplicates or on the same topic, so I'm trying to pick some that have been asked frequently. And so if you just hold 1 minute till I find the one I'm looking for. Let's start with this one. And I'm going to call on the candidates in a random order. What qualities are important in a superintendent? Let's start with Mr. Wilson.
Well, first, I think you have to start with someone that shares our passion for public education, someone that has that passion that can be communicated to the teachers and parents of the district and can serve as a basis for doing the hard work and the hard job that needs to be done. Then I think the next step is somebody who can communicate with people in the district in both directions. That means they listen as well as let people know the way the things are going to be done, and also work with the community as a whole. And I think that certainly another very important aspect is someone that will work as the sixth team member with the board. We have a 5-person board. The superintendent has to be part of that so that we have a common vision and work together to make the schools as effective as they can be. And of course, we need someone that has the capability and experience of running an organization of the size of the school district. The overall budget of the school district is on the order of $100 million when you count all the things that are going on. That takes someone with significant organizational skills to be able to do that. So I think it's important. That's going to be one of the first jobs that we do is recruiting that new superintendent. It's something that I've done in business in terms of recruiting people, high-level personnel. I think we need to make sure we get somebody that can really pull the district together, at the same time be a partner in making the district as efficient as possible and focusing us again on education.
Mr. Katz?
Well, simply I want a superintendent who, when he deals with the board, includes all board members in his discussion and just doesn't limit it to a few. Most importantly, I want a school board or a superintendent whose most important issue is the students, not petty politics, not anything other than just the students. That's the issue that I want. I want our new superintendent to practice inclusion, and whoever that superintendent may be, to draw all people of the community together so we all have a representative voice in the district. And I want a superintendent who is out there in the community so people know him, and much like our former superintendent, Joe Hamilton. Thank you.
Mr. MacKenzie?
My view of the superintendent's job is that he's like the chief executive officer of our district. He's someone that the 5 board members who are elected by the public can make room at the table for a 6th seat, and he should be a part of most of the discussions and deliberations and part of the team that decides how best to run the district. The thing that he needs to bring that's different from the 5 of us is that he needs to bring a professional a level of professionalism and experience. He needs to be educated and have experience in how to run a school district. Running a school district is a complex process. The second thing that I look for is he's essentially running a business for us. He needs to show fiscal responsibility. He needs to help us use our resources in the best possible way to get the largest bang for our buck. He needs to have creativity in how to solve problems, not just reading from a book, not taking the easy way out, but finding, possibly the more complex solution to a problem. He needs to be hire good people. He needs to be able to hire a good staff, which we've got in our district now, but we need to be able to maintain that. And then I would add on to that list community involvement and being accessible to people and being able to listen to everyone so that everyone does have a voice.
Ms. Ho?
I believe an organization or a community of people should be ruled by law, by regulations. Therefore, I believe a superintendent should be able to follow the law and follow the policy, follow the instruction of the board. It's not a decision made only by person, by personal preference. So this superintendent needs to be accountable to the board. And also, I believe rules don't change people, only people change people. Therefore, I believe the superintendent needs to have characteristics, and he needs to have integrity, fairness, openness, and honesty to lead a community, to lead an organization, lead a public school. And the superintendent is a leader in charge of over $100 million of public school. So the superintendent needs to have the quality of the leadership. He needs to be able to have a vision, to set a priority and make a plan, be able to monitor the plan and review the plan, carry that through. So these are the important things I believe that the superintendent needs to have.
And Ms. Nunes?
Well, I believe educational experience is very important. So understanding what goes on in schools would be one of the first things that I would be looking for. After that, it's a matter of being able to bring people together and to be a visionary, and that means listening to people in the community. That means the community, it means parents, it means students, bringing those people together so that they can be heard and that he can utilize what the board is hearing out in the community, because we are your ambassadors in the community, to put together a series of goals and to communicate those goals so that everyone knows where we are headed. And that's the piece that means that you have to be a visionary. You have to look toward the future. We have a long-range plan, but there are goals that have to be set on a yearly basis, and sometimes we have to make a few adjustments in that long-range plan, and that person needs to be seeing when those things need to occur and how they can play out in our community. The person needs to respect and understand people of all kinds. He obviously, or she, needs to like students, and they need to be able to utilize and develop the staff's talents, because we have a wonderful staff that's been hired. And you can't be a leader without people who want to follow you, and so you have to develop that kind of follow capability and the leadership of the people and develop their leadership so that they can help you get where you need to go as a superintendent.
Thank you. The next questioner says, we have a very diverse student population. However, we have very little corresponding diversity in both our teacher population and in our district management team. If you were elected, what kind of concrete actions would you take to broaden diversity, and in what timeline? And we'll start these with Avie Katz.
Sure. I think that our district's hiring plan ought to reflect diversity. We live in a diverse community. I've had the feeling that some of the hiring in our district has been based on cronyism, and that doesn't reflect diversity. It's an issue that upsets me. I think, first of all, if we can't find people in the local community who reflect that diversity, who are trained in that area, then we need to search beyond the community. and offer a salary and everything else that would draw these people into the community. We can train people from our teaching ranks to go into administration to reflect that diversity. The other thing is, though, that if we search well enough for people, especially in the administration field, to come into our district and work, and we offer what they need and what they will, what appeals to them to come in, I'm sure that we will find a diverse group to come in. Thank you.
Ms. Ho?
I think we are very fortunate that in our community we have very diverse student population and families, and we bring into this community a very rich culture and an opportunity for us to learn from each other. So that is very important that we have teachers, administrators that reflect this diversity. But unfortunately, in the last few years, that our administrators' positions especially in the Asian community, and management positions, that has been declined to the point I don't recall that. I don't think we even have one Asian manager in our district. That's unfortunate. And I think as a board member, I will really hold this accountable to our superintendent to make a special effort to really hire administrators and teachers reflect our student population. Because the teachers and administrators, if they can reflect the student population, they really set a good model for the students, and they can really also help the students to understand, help the parents to understand the school and also understand what the student went through, going through as from a different ethnic background. Thank you.
Ms. Nunes?
Well, I too believe that it's important that our staff reflect the diversity of our community. I know that we've been trying hard to do that. It isn't easy to do that. However, we have been going out to colleges and to college fairs and trying to put together some fairs of our own within the district. But I do think that growing our own is something that we can do, encouraging our students through guidance and showing them what the teaching field and the other kinds of opportunities are in education. So that's important, but in order to do something where we attract those people and people from somewhere else, we need to offer competitive salaries. And we also need to help with housing in some way. So those kinds of things are important. People come here and they're shocked, as all of us know, about the housing, and it's not easy for people on a teaching salary to come in. So we need to help them to do that. There are some opportunities with interns and student teaching positions where we can reach out to encourage some of the people to come here. Once they come here, we need to build loyalty for them. We need to encourage them with staff development. We need to make them feel like they're part of us so that they stay, even if they're just in a student teaching or an intern position. Thank you.
Mr. MacKenzie?
Particularly when we go out to hire teachers, and district staff also, there are credentialing requirements, standards that need to be met. And I think our top priority needs to be to hire the best people that we can find. It's unfortunate that right now the number of people who enter the teaching profession or the education profession, the demographics of that group don't match up with the demographics of our students. Within the general parameters of finding the best people, I do think we need to be especially sensitive and when we find people that match our student demographics, we need to attract those people, we need to try to hire those people, we need to try to get them into our district. But I don't think we're going to, and I know that the district has made progress recently. The head of the personnel department made a recent report to the board showing progress in the recent season, the recent summer of hiring teachers. So progress a little at a time, being attentive, paying attention to the needs of the different demographic groups and trying to attract them into our district is the best thing we can do.
Mr. Wilson?
Thank you. Well, first of all, the diversity of our district is really an asset. It's one of the reasons I live here. Our kids get to grow up in an environment where they see the world as it really is. I grew up in Central Ohio where everybody looked the same and the real adventurers were the ones that had been to Columbus. So our kids see a different world, and it is appropriate that the staff and teachers reflect that student body population to the extent possible. And how do we do that? We have to broaden the talent pool from which we draw, which gets back to being able to do the things that will entice teachers to come here. One of the things I'm very happy to see is that we've got some people who graduated from the district who are back here teaching. And I think they will serve as an inspiration to more of the students from this district to go into the teaching profession and eventually work their way up into other staff positions if they so desire. One of the things we certainly have to do to bring those teachers on board is, because it is hard to just buy them. We can't buy them with the cost of living here. We need to give them competitive salaries, but we need to empower them so that they know that the staff and teachers of the district will be able to do their job without day-to-day second-guessing from people on the board, that they will have the opportunity to grow and take on new challenges so that some of those teachers that we brought on board can take on increasingly responsible positions in the future.
Thank you. The next question has, you have a choice of 3 answers, but I suppose if your answer wasn't one of these 3, you could come up with something else. If you disagree with a board decision, would you, 1, record disagreement but support the board, 2, silently support the board, 3, continue to advocate belief even though it undermines the board? And let's start these answers with Barbara Nunes.
Well, I'll give you an example of a couple of things. Last spring, the board was talking about whether or not we should allow students to walk in the graduation ceremony if they did not pass the exit exam. And although we gave certificates of completion to students who received the number of units that was appropriate for graduation, there were some students who still hadn't passed the exit exam. And we had a debate, and I was the lone vote for not having students walk for some reasons that I'm not necessarily to go into right now. But once the board had made the decision, then I passed out whatever we passed out at graduation and didn't say anything more. It was a board's decision. I'll say that later on in the summertime, I did not agree with the majority of the board, and I did vote no when we voted to terminate the superintendent. At that time, I gave some reasons, and I still am giving those reasons, and I felt strongly that I could not necessarily go along silently with the rest of the board. That's very unfortunate, because what it's done is it's put us in a situation where publicly we have been criticized. But it is something where I felt we made a mistake, and I wasn't going to be silent about it.
Avie Katz?
Sure. School boards have an odd number of members for a reason, and that's so we can be independent thinkers and then vote. If we disagree on an issue, that's fine when we're talking about the issue, discussing it in open session. That's democracy. And when we vote, and the wisdom of the majority takes the is how we decide to go. If we don't, if we disagree, that's fine, but we live in a democracy and the majority rules, and when the board votes that way, I think that's the way that we ought to go. Thank you.
Bill Wilson?
Yes, I think the answer to that question really starts before the vote's taken, because it's at that stage that you need to listen respectfully to each other. It's fine it's a good thing to have different perspectives on issues and disagree, but I think it's important to try to work together to find some common ground, to understand what each other's thinking, and try to find some sort of mutual agreement so that the decision is something that everyone can live with. Of course, ultimately a vote is taken. At that point, I think the key thing is not to say that you changed your mind or something like that. I'll always tell you what I think, but to not go out and try to stir up controversy where there should not be controversy. At the same time, we do need to learn from things that are mistakes. When the board doesn't take into account things like contracts and doing things in a thought-through fashion, which mitigates risks and controls the exposure of the district, someone needs to say that so that the district does something better the next time, deals with the situation more effectively in the future. So as a group, we need to keep learning. I would suggest that the most important thing is to work together so that we come up with agreement with positions that are better than what anyone individually might have had, take advantage of those 5 people, work together, and come out with positions that we all can support.
Thank you. Don MacKenzie?
Yeah, I spent 8 years on the Planning Commission in the city, and there again, we had a 5-member board. And when we sat down to look at a proposal or an idea or whatever, we've seldom agreed. But we took the time and spent the effort to discuss and argue, and each of us presenting our view of what what the benefits are, what the risks are, what the data is behind our viewpoints, and work that through. So we spent a lot more time talking and a lot less time voting. Most of the time, not every time, but most of the time, we were able to find some ground, either by explaining our viewpoints to each other or by modifying the proposal to take the best ideas from each of the 5 members of the board. So we had a richer proposal, a richer plan at the end of it. So that, we ended up with 5-0 votes, probably 90% of the time. There are occasions where we vote differently. We vote in public. People know how we vote, and we also explained our votes. And I think that's really important that people understand that we really made the effort to find common ground, and that's where the value of the 5-member board is.
Kathryn Ho?
I think the spirit of democracy is that we have 5 different board members. These 5 board members are all elected by the community. We all bring into this board with different strength, different weakness, different background, different perspective. So it is important that the 5 board members all needs to be able to participate in this decision making. In the past, that I am always tried my best. If my opinion is different from the rest of the board member, I always try my best to explain to the rest of the board my position, and I try to convince them. But if I cannot convince, sometimes I can convince 1, sometimes I can convince 2, but if I cannot convince them, if I become the minority of the decision, I always accept the result and I support the result. However, sometimes in our board, and we have some difficulty because sometimes we have our superintendent only communicate with 1 or 2 board member, or 3 board member, and then once he knows that this decision has become a majority, he knows what the majority is going to be, and then he doesn't communicate with the rest of the board member. So I think that is the problem with the board sometimes, and also we have board members sometimes at the last minute change from an agenda from an open session to the closed session, so it caught me in surprise. I think we need to change some of those practice.
Thank you. Next question. I said 1 question to a card, but these are related questions, so we're going to go with 2. What are you going to do with those students who are not in the top 15% of their class? What programs, etc.? How are you going to meet their needs? And we'll start these answers with Don MacKenzie.
We really need to educate all of the students who come to our school. We need to provide them the opportunity for the free public education that it's our job to provide. The One of the things that I think we need to do, a better job of, is encouraging those students who may not be the straight A students, who may not be the top 15%, may not be taking the AP classes. You can be a successful, happy, proud person without being in that top 15% group. And we need to work with our students and work with our parents to get them to accept that viewpoint, that what we're after here is success, and success is measured by being a productive, happy citizen in our community. When I was on the PTA, there were a couple of things that I did trying to address that group of people. One is that our PTA had historically given a couple of college scholarships each year. And when I looked at those, it was you wrote an essay, whoever wrote the best essay got $500. And I said, the kids who write the best essay have already got plenty of scholarships. So we redirected that money into the AVID program, into providing SAT prep classes for kids who might not be considering going to college. And I think that's spreading our resources and putting them in the place where they can be most effective and where they have the broadest reach.
Ms. Nunes?
Well, I think we do give our students an opportunity for choosing a variety of classes. Sometimes they don't understand what the variety means, or they don't make appropriate choices because we still have some work to do in our guidance system, which is one of the things that is part of the long-range plan and that we're beginning to work on. Post-secondary choices are a great variety, probably many more things than students think about when they're going in to school, and the idea of just college is just not enough. There are a variety of colleges they can choose from, and the match is important. So it's not just the top 15% that we should be looking at, but we should be providing students, all the students, with basic information that prepare them for later. I kind of question the top 15% because I think it's a larger group of students who certainly have the interest in going on to school, but I think guidance is a real key to that. I also think that we have some other kinds of programs that provide for students to test out what they might want to do, like our Regional Opportunity Program that allows them to explore some careers. So we have to expose students to a variety of different kinds of choices, and I think sort of making our guidance program a little bit more robust would help those students below the 15 percentile.
Bill Wilson?
Well, one of the great things about public schools is that public schools take all comers. Private schools have it easy. They get to pick and choose the ones that are easy to educate. Public schools don't have that opportunity, which is a challenge, but at the same time, a great thing. It means our kids get exposed to a variety of people. It's much more of a real slice. But then we have a responsibility to educate each of our 10,000 students in a way that gives them the best chance for success. Not just getting into college, but being successful in college or whatever other pursuit they want to do afterwards. So it comes back to giving options for all of our students. Now, we give a number of them now, and I think there are more we can do, but in order to do that and meet those needs of those students, we're going to have to be very careful about how we prioritize and spend money. We come back to that, but none of this can be accomplished without that. I think another factor involved here is recognition. One of the things that's very hard for some of those students is that they may not be in the top 15% here. They might have been the top person in some high school someplace because of the outstanding students we have. It's great that we've got outstanding students. That's a wonderful thing to be celebrated. But we also need ways to recognize those other students for their accomplishments and to put an emphasis on comprehensive education of the whole child and things not just in the classroom.
Kathryn Ho?
Thank you. I think we can be very proud of our district because we are a high-performing high school district. We do have many students who are very highly academic, perform academically very highly. but we have very diverse student population. They all perform in different level, and I believe the equality does not mean that we have to offer the same classes at all same 5 high schools. Equality means that every student should have the equal opportunity to learn and achieve their highest potential. Therefore, it is important that we should offer diverse courses for different students' need. And I also think we should really give a student a chance to really have a 4-year plan at the beginning of their freshman year, so they know what their the high school goal is. And then we will be able to offer them the classes that fit into their 4-year high school plan. Right now, and on top of that, I also believe that we are educating a whole child. So even if we believe that, even if we are a high-performing high school, we also believe we offer the challenge for the student to accomplish the highest potential. We also need to balance that with, remember that we are nurturing the whole child.
Avie Katz?
Sure. Horace Mann was the person that designed or developed our modern education system now, and one thing that Horace felt was that education didn't serve its purpose unless it served all of the people, all of the students. And by that he did not mean that we would have to have cookie cutter type courses. So I feel that courses have to be designed for the different level of students that we service. Personally, I look right now beyond just the below 15%, I'm looking at the lower 40% of the achievers. And one of the things that I want to happen is that those lower 40% are dealing with teachers who are CLAD trained, because a lot of the people, even at the below 15%, are students who don't speak English that well, or they can speak English very well when they're talking to you, but they can't do it well in written form. That they haven't learned because their heritage language is not English. So what I feel that we should do is CLAD train the teachers. CLAD training is a way of dealing with coursework where you're dealing with a group of kids who do not speak or are not really that familiar with the language that you speak as a teacher, but you're able to communicate with them and train them. In many districts throughout the state, it's now required. You can't even go in the door if you haven't had that training. Thank you.
Thank you. Next question. Has the independent investigator requested an interview with you? And second part of this question, have you been interviewed by the independent investigator? So we'll start with Mr. Katz.
Yes and no. All right. Yes. Today I received a message that the independent investigator wants to meet with me, but I have not met with that person yet.
MacKenzie.
Yeah, I've not been contacted by him, and that's not surprising since I wasn't involved in the district in the time period that he's looking at it.
Bill Wilson.
I haven't been contacted by him. I was not involved with the district, but I might take a second to just say, because it looks like that has taken a while to get that investigation going, that I think although it's a good thing there's an investigation, it's important for people to remember the facts that started all of this, because there are conclusions and lessons we can draw from that. Monte Vista lost two excellent teachers, two outstanding teachers. They're really world-class teachers. And there are students at Monte Vista this year who are having a very different experience than they would have because those teachers are no longer here. And the start of that was a board member going to the superintendent to question the local decision at the school to allow that teacher to take on a position they were, turns out, fully qualified for. Not only did this mean the loss of two teachers for those students, it also means that those staff members, those principals, are going to be looking over their shoulder when they're doing something. That's not the way to empower people. That's not the way to get the creativity out of people. You don't want them thinking about when is a board member going to come question what we're doing. So I am looking forward to the results of the investigation. As I said, I think it's important to learn lessons so we can do better in the future, and there's some lessons that are already very apparent.
Barbara Nunes?
I have been contacted through a series of questions that have come through the district's lawyer. I have not spoken with the independent investigator. We are going to have a board meeting on November 2nd, which the independent investigator will be giving us some information about where he is in this investigation. It is very disappointing that this investigation hasn't moved more quickly, although I don't want it not to be superficial. I feel like this has been close to a month and a half, and I wish that it would have happened sooner. I know the community wants to hear about it.
Kathryn Ho?
I have not been contacted by the investigator personally, but I also received a list of questions through our district attorney regarding the teachers' issue. I haven't, because I'm so busy with the campaign, I haven't had the chance to write down my answers yet. But I do need to turn in the answer soon. Regarding this issue, I felt very disappointed that this actually is not a very unique situation, because I know the board member making suggestions to superintendent has happened many times. The board member has been involved in personnel decision-making, has happened many times. But for this particular situation, it turned out into a very political issue, and also become a political power struggle. I think that's something I felt ashamed of it that happens at our board. And also I felt that this pushing to get this meeting, to have the meeting on November 2nd, was totally came to me as a surprise, because we actually have decided that we are not going to push the investigator to get this result out. And according to what I just find out, I mean, the investigator has not been able to talk to some of the key people, only through the questionnaire for us to answer. I doubt it. We are going to have a very good conclusion of that investigation if we hurry to that result.
Thank you. Next question. How do you feel about modern language, and what can we do about this? I presume that's what can we do about how you feel about it, or what are you going to do about it? And let's start the answers with Kathryn Ho.
The modern language last year was one of the priority made by our superintendent. So we started a Chinese language committee between the district and the local Chinese school, and that has gone very well. The committee has supported the school district, and district supported to support the district to develop some of the curriculum, especially the AP Chinese curriculum. And I understand this year we started to offer the AP Japanese classes too. As far as the modern language, what will be our priority in the future? This has not been brought to the board. The board has not sit down and discuss about this. But personally, I believe the modern language should be a priority, because the global economy, the world is getting smaller and smaller, especially in Silicon Valley. We experience the globalization every day around us. So I think modern language, it should be a priority in the district.
Ms. Nunes?
Well, I'm really proud that we're now offering a number of Pacific Rim languages, and the whole set of Pacific Rim languages, all the way from 1 through AP. That isn't easy to do, and as a result, you can see that we're calling this modern language now, and we are more modern than some of us remember when we used to call it foreign language. And we probably will continue to change as we have needs, but it isn't easy to do because it demands some kinds of numbers, and it demands resources. And until we get numbers that are large enough in the 1 level and the 2 level, we really can't expand out and have 3s and 4s and AP so that students can take all of those years. So we have to be very careful with our resources, that when we start a language, we start it with the number of students who really want to try to continue all the way through and utilize our resources well. What's happened as a result of what's going on now with modern languages. We've dropped German, which was not something that was popular, and we didn't have the student interest. And I think in the future you may see that we will be looking at whether or not we can sustain French, because there will be some move towards some of these other languages, and we won't have the number of students that we need to sustain a program. And you don't want to start a number 1 program or a 2 program and not be able to promise to carry through into 3 and 4 and maybe AP.
Thank you. Mr. Wilson?
Well, first of all, I certainly agree that modern languages are very important. You travel other places and you hear how many people can speak English as well as multiple other languages. You realize that this country has a ways to go. And as we have to deal with the global economy, that's an important, going to be a very important thing for our future, that our citizens can speak multiple languages and deal with people in their own language. As Barbara's pointed out, we have to be practical in putting these programs together, which means we have to have know that we can have a self-sustaining program, one where there will be enough enrollment to keep things going at various levels. So we have to look for enough people in the lower level courses. That makes it a challenge to do this at all the schools and give opportunities to all of our students to take those languages, as I would like to do. So one of the things I think we have to do is to look more at some of the scheduling issues and some of the issues that would perhaps allow students to take advantage of courses in other schools if there was one where there was not quite enough demand to get the program going at a school as a stopgap. That gives them at least an opportunity, if they want to get out there and get going in that language.
Mr. Katz?
Many of you have read The World is Flat. It's quite obvious that by Thomas Friedman, it's quite obvious that we've entered a new world economy, and if our students are going to be able to compete well, they have to have and be skilled at the new modern world languages. So I'm a proponent of that. I'm actually a member of the Chinese Language Committee in this district. Before I talk about anything else, I have to respond to something that Bill said about the teacher who left the district, and that is this. I was told, it had been brought to my attention, that a waiver was granted without board approval. I went to the superintendent and asked him about that question. I absolutely did not have anything to do with that teacher leaving. He was never denied the job. The job never even came to the board level. It was never discussed. All right? This teacher left on his own, and what he said in his final statement was that he was able to find an area where the cost of living wasn't as high as in this area, and that was in the newspapers. So thank you.
Mr. MacKenzie?
You've heard from other respondents here about the amount of advanced planning that it takes to introduce a modern language and sustain it within the school district. This is a good example where we need some advanced planning and anticipating what languages students are going to want 3, 4, 5 years from now. I've got some personal experiences that are interesting about languages. First off, it was mentioned that German was dropped. My daughter was in the German class when she was here, and so she was one of the people who got dropped out. She was taking German 3 and enjoyed it a lot, but the program wasn't sustainable. There were not enough students. It had to be dropped. I had one boy who took French. He took 3 years of French here, and he did very well in that class. He came out thinking that he was a great French speaker, and he went to college and looked at even getting a minor in French until he took a college level French class. And what he realized is that he'd had 1 year of French 3 times. And I think the modern languages are a good case where we need to have standards. And it's been said, there need to be expectations for what you have learned in a first year class. One other short story is a woman came to me and said that her son was afraid to take Chinese 1 because there were so many Chinese speakers in there. And Chinese 1 should be something you can take as a beginner. What's interesting is that woman was Chinese herself, and her son was interested in picking up some of his heritage, and because the standards were inconsistent, he was denied that.
Thank you. If you get elected, how do you intend to help special education kids and disabled and special needs kids? What funding for these kids and classes for this group to succeed in life? We'll start the answers with Barbara Nunes.
We do have a very good special ed program in our district, and we send very few students away because we can facilitate the variety of needs that the special ed students have. But there are still some things that need to be worked on, and one of them is trying to match up their particular abilities with something that they can do. And we do have some things called a workability program where students are able to go out and work and see where they can function, or they can go to some of the other institutions like Hope and work. But we really need to continue to look at that personalized learning that's part of the long-range plan and see what the students are capable of doing and try to do a match up with that. And that really does take some resources. It takes some creativity among the teachers. It takes some resources to outsource those kinds of things and to make commitments with the community. So we do need to help get the community involved in some of these programs so that students can see what it is. We also have a pretty good program at De Anza where some of those students can go on and be successful there and then look at some careers that are available in some of De Anza's certificate programs. So working with De Anza would be another thing, in a little bit more than we presently are doing, that I would see happening.
Mr. MacKenzie?
Yeah, we do have a commitment to provide educational opportunities to all of the students who come to us. And, that certainly includes the special ed and the disabled kids and those kinds of things. There were, I know that when my kids were at Cupertino High, there were programs going on at that high school. And it was good for those kids to be part of a normal high school, and they were mainstreamed as much as possible, that those kids were, shared classes in some cases. Obviously, each program needs to be tuned, and that's what the special education program is all about, is that, learning plans are put together on a student-by-student basis. I don't profess to be an expert in this stuff. The information that I have is we do a pretty good job of that in our district ourselves. And I know one thing we were looking at the other night was how much money the district spends on lawyers, and educating these kids, the special ed kids, the disabled kids, is usually an area of some contention with, parents versus the school district as to how much accommodation is needed and so on. And our legal expenses in that area are very, very low. And that tells me that we are working with parents, working with students, and finding ways to accommodate them and do, provide educational opportunities for them.
Mr. Wilson?
Yes, this is an area that's certainly near and dear to my heart. In fact, my oldest daughter, who's a graduate from the district from Fremont, is teaching special education kids in Kennedy Middle School, in the middle school. And so I think one of the key things here, one of the things that makes any of those programs a success, is finding very creative teachers. Each student needs really an approach that's particular to them. And so getting teachers that have the creativity and the energy to do that's very important. And so attracting and retaining good teachers is a critical thing. Now, how do you pay for it? Well, I think we can be creative in our use of categorical funds and make sure we draw on various resources available for that. I think Don also, I would second Don's point about working with parents, because we work with parents and involve them from the beginning. You can make sure, first of all, that you have a program that really fits the child. But secondly, you can reduce a lot of those secondary expenses that have to do with an antagonistic approach with parents if a school district does that. So working with the parents can mean that the funds go directly to educating those children.
Mr. Katz?
I think this extends beyond the school district. I personally am a supporter of the organization of special needs families, and I think that's something that we all can support in this group. The way I approach this, and I've done before, is that I've looked at our legislators as the conduit to help for our district, and I have gone to Sacramento and to lobby for various plans like special ed to get more money. And I know some people call special ed a real drain on a budget, but I don't feel that way. There are people that really need this, and if they're going to succeed in life, then they need us to really be lobbying hard for them so that their needs are met. Thank you.
Ms. Ho?
Our district, we do offer special ed program for special ed students, and we also work together with county office for special programs for different kind of special ed needs. However, personally, I believe that the guidance counseling is a very important part for special ed students. Personally, when I was doing counseling, even though I was not doing the academic counseling for the students, basically, mostly it's doing the psychological counseling, I found that special ed students, they really need a special support. Sometimes a student will share with me, he just have a difficulty to write a very simple paragraph, but his understanding of a car is just amazing. He can talk to me about a car for 1 hour, and he needs to be encouraged in his special area, in his special talent and strength. And also, I think the academic guidance counseling is also important because special ed students need more guidance to help them to plan their post-secondary goals and to understand their strength and what they want for their life. So I believe that our district should spend some more time to really study in the area of guidance.
Thank you. I think we have time for one more question before we get to closing statements. Does the district have enough money for the schools and teachers as a result of the firing of Mr. Rowley? How much money will the district lose? We'll start the answers with Mr. Katz.
I don't think, well, first of all, I want to tell you something about this firing. This is a very, very, an issue that I put a lot of thought into, and I want you to know that it wasn't not a knee-jerk reaction. It was something that I really thought over. But you can't put a price on doing the right thing. And you know, nobody knows what this is going to cost. If you hear people saying large figures or something like that, they don't know what they're talking about. It hasn't been determined yet. This superintendent could end up with nothing. And he's limited by law to 18 months of his salary and no more, but there's no guarantee that he'll get that amount. So we have no idea what the impact is. I think the main thing that we need to be concerned with here is our children's needs and putting somebody in place who can really serve those needs well. And I can't discuss any more about the superintendent because of the restrictions put on us by the attorney, but if I were to do it over again, I would vote the same way. Thank you.
Mr. Wilson?
Well, I think this is another case where it's not so much about intentions, but about how things are done. I think it's actually a very frightening statement that nobody knows what it's going to cost, and I think it's a very accurate statement. If one decides you're at the point with an employee where you've worked with him, tried to shore up his weaknesses, which everyone has, given him evaluations, that you decide it's time to go in another direction, one of the things you certainly learn from business is that you don't simply drop a contract. You read the contract, you work with its terms, you do the negotiation before you take the action. You don't do the negotiation afterwards, so that you should know how much it's going to cost before you move ahead. I think it's a similar sort of thing of the difference between intentions and effect in the case of the Monte Vista teachers. One of the things I've learned from being on boards is you have to act like a board member. I've been on company boards. You have to bite your tongue sometimes. You have an idea of how things might be done, how you do them, You have to let other people do that. And you have to learn that people think of you as a board member with authority. So if you go in and ask a question, you need to make sure that you're very careful about how you do that. Because in this case, although the teachers could move to some place where it was a lower cost of living, all our teachers could do that. We're always in a battle to recruit and retain the best teachers. And in this case, the tipping point was the politics of what was involved. Thank you.
Ms. Ho?
I would like to say that it has been a lot of rumors out there that the board made the decision. It is an emotional decision. It is a very unexpected decision. I have to say that the board actually spent more than a month to negotiate with superintendent. However, the superintendent closed the door. So that leads us to have no options that we made that decision. So it is not a sudden decision. It is not like what the rumor said, that we didn't try to negotiate and work things out with the superintendent. And I also want to say this is a very difficult decision. It is a very serious decision, and I'm very proud of being responsible to the community and being able to make this is very tough decision. With all my conscience and by my best knowledge, I believe that is the best decision that I have made for this community and the high school district.
Thank you. Mr. MacKenzie?
Yeah, to respond to the question about money, the district was severely hurt by the recession that started in 2001. We had to cut back a lot of programs. The economy is doing better. The parcel tax passed, which got us out of the woods, in my view. And it's really distressing to now have this cloud over us, which could easily be in the six figures of money here that takes a lot of money, which is teachers, it's programs, and so on that we could otherwise afford. Firing an employee is a business decision. And when you make a business decision like that, I think the things you need to look at are, I can do better. I can get rid of this employee and I can find someone better. Right now, I don't think we could find someone better because I don't think a highly qualified superintendent wants to come to work for this district and for this board. A second thing is you look at the cost benefit. You say, what could this cost us? What is the benefit? And is it worth it? If you don't know what it's going to cost, it's really hard to compute a cost benefit ratio. A third thing to think about is, Dr. Rowley was fired on a Tuesday night and basically, escorted from the building. And would our district have been severely damaged if he had come to work Wednesday morning? Somehow I don't think so. He had a satisfactory review from the board just 2 months earlier. And I don't think that he would have done serious harm by coming to work on the third day of school.
Ms. Nunes?
Well, in June, we did evaluate the superintendent, which is one of our roles as policymakers. And if you look at the agendas without violating closed session information, which I believe may have just been done, you can look at the agendas and see that we were negotiating with him for a contract. And then suddenly, there was a decision to terminate. I do believe there are other ways to deal with that. And working with a person is one. Letting a person know that you're not happy with them and allowing them with some opportunity to leave. And in most cases, superintendents who know that that's the case start to look for a job within the next year and don't wait for the next year or the last year of their contract to do that. So there were other opportunities and other ways that this could have been handled, but it was done abruptly. As far as the money is concerned, it is too bad that we don't know. There is a contract. We look at attorney's fees every board meeting and they keep growing and they're not going to go away. There is potential of litigation that the superintendent has filed a claim for. And the worst part of this whole thing is that those of you out there aren't going to trust us as a board. and the superintendent that might come to us that would be the next good one isn't going to feel very good about it either unless we fix this.
Thank you. And now we come to closing statements. Each candidate has 2 minutes for a closing statement, and we're going to go in the reverse order as to the opening statements. So we will start with Bill Wilson.
Thank you, Roberta, and thank you for hosting this. I think we've talked about a lot of things tonight, and we just need to remember it's all about the students. We, as the board, will have to move the district forward in a way that helps the educational opportunities for all of our 10,000 students, empowers our teachers and staff so that we can recruit and retain the best possible staff in the future, and act fiscally responsible so that we'll have the dollars for the programs we need. What are the things we'll need to do right away after we get started next year? Well, we'll need to move beyond some of the difficulties we have right now. For one thing, we'll need to find a new superintendent. The sooner the better, so that we can start with the planning that we need in the future. In order to do that, we need a board that works together. Right now, any superintendent would love to come to this district because of the teachers, the staff, the students that are here, but no superintendent is going to do it to come work for a board that's as divided as the current one. So we need to change that chemistry and get a situation where we can attract a world-class superintendent. We need to settle any litigation that comes out of the decisions that have been made this year, get those behind us so we can move forward. And with those, I hope to work hard to rebuild the trust of the community, because that's an important part of what we need to do. I think I can bring a fresh perspective to this. I come from a background which has given me experiences which I think are helpful in serving as a board member on a large organization. And I think this board needs a fresh perspective so that, as I say, we can regain the trust of the community, refocus the district on the educational mission of our students, and move forward. And if we do that, we can move on to a better future. We can do great things in this district, and I hope to be a part of that. Thank you.
Thank you. Barbara Nunes.
Well, I'd like to use my experience, which I've talked to you about, to leverage that into being a policymaker and continue doing that as a board member in the next 4 years. I believe that my commitment to academics is important, and my focus on accountability. We do need, in the future, a focus on students. We need to work together. Even though each of us may have individual ideas, we do need to work together, and we do need to do that kind of discussion that gets us to a point where we aren't in the situation we are now. We need to gain the public trust. We need to move on the long-range plan so we can move forward, and we need to match the goals in the plan with our fiscal decisions. I'd like to share with you something that's a story that, as a result of my campaigning, I got a lot of information from a lot of different people, and this is a real special thing to me. It's about the passion that I have for education, I think. This is from a dad. His youngest daughter graduated from George Washington University in 3 years as a math major, summa cum laude, and has a PhD in math. She passed the LSAT at 99% and is in law school and is a federal judge clerkship right now. That's what she has. The middle girl graduated from George Washington University in political communications and was in charge of research in the Al Gore campaign and is currently a lawyer. And the older one got a master's in industrial psychology and is a major in the military in Israel. Those 3 girls went through one of our schools. There are thousands of stories like these girls, and there, unfortunately, are some stories that aren't as successful as those 3 girls. What I'd like to do is work the next 4 years to make our great school district even better, and I want to be a part of that, and that's why I'm running.
Thank you. Don MacKenzie.
Yeah, there are some really neat success stories, and in a way, that's why I'm here. I come here as a parent, okay? I've had 3 children go through the school. They're all doing very, very well. My oldest wants to go to school forever. They're excited about learning. My daughter called me today totally thrilled that in a research lab she found a new way to synthesize trichloroacetylisocyanate, and it took her a while to teach me to even twist my tongue that way. But these are kids who've been very successful going through our schools, and we have lots of those. While my kids were going through school, while I was president of the PTA, I got to know a lot of our staff, and I became really impressed. I'm not a big fan of government bureaucracies and so on, but this school district is about educating kids. It is an appropriate use of your tax dollars. It helps all of society when we can educate our children, and we've got a wonderful group of people who are doing that. And it's really because of them that I decided to run for the board. I bring to the board, I mentioned my experience on the Planning Commission. I've been trained in finance. I've been an auditor at Advanced Micro Devices. I've managed a division of 130 people in 5 different departments. So I've managed people. I'm working in technology. So these are things I'd bring to the board. It's finance experience, management experience, technology experience, and my experience on the Planning Commission, working with the 5-member team and learning how to promote teamwork and common ground.
Thank you. Avie Katz?
Sure. I would like you to know that recently I have received 2 inquiries from some very excellent candidates who are interested in the position of superintendent. So saying that nobody's interested in our district because of its history is wrong. The other thing I want you to know before I leave is that it is entirely within the realm of a school board member to approach the superintendent and ask questions of that superintendent, especially if that board member thinks that something wrong is going on. I want you to know that 8 years ago, I ran for the school board to make positive changes in public education in this district, and I was following in my father's footsteps. I ran for this board as a way of making a difference in this community, and that's what I've done, and I want to continue to do that. I'm here to tell you that as the school board president, I see this district and its population reaching its full potential. And I wanted that potential to raise, all right? I believe very strongly that we need to reconnect the district with the various ethnic groups that make up our community, who frankly have been getting mixed messages around here lately, and that's wrong. Okay, the district is here to serve our kids. The high standards we want them to achieve should be attainable for all, and if we work together, we can succeed together. Thank you.
Kathryn Ho.
The Fremont Union High School District needs an administration that is accountable to the board. And the board needs members who is independent, accessible, and objective. In the last 8 years, I have proved that I am an independent thinker, decision maker, and I always study and analyze each issue. I have always been accessible to the parents, to the community, because I value your opinion. And I have always held our superintendent accountable that our administration will deal with our parents, our students, and every constituents of this district with honesty, openness, fairness. So I have proved that I will be able to serve this district in the next 4 years for the best interest of our students.
Thank you. And thank you, candidates. When you go to the polls in this contest, you have the ability to vote for 3 candidates. In closing, I'd like to tell you that more information on these candidates and all the candidates on your ballot and all the ballot measures on your ballot can be found at the League's website, smartvoter.org. Be sure to check it out. And remember to vote on November 7th. Thank you. Hello. Welcome to this forum for candidates for the County Board of Education, seat number 2. The forum is sponsored by the League of Women Voters of Cupertino Sunnyvale, a nonprofit, nonpartisan organization. I am Roberta Hollimon. I'm a member of the League of Women Voters, and I will be the moderator for this forum. Candidates will give a 2-minute opening statement. They will have 1.5 minutes to answer questions, and they will be able to give a 2-minute closing statement. Questions can be submitted in writing by the audience. The candidates for the county board are Charlie Ahern, Lynette Lee Ng, and T.N. Ho. And so we'll start opening statements with Charlie Ahern.
Good evening. My name is Charlie Ahern. I want to begin by thanking the League of Women Voters and the City of Cupertino for sponsoring this forum. Last Friday, the San Jose Mercury News endorsed me in this election. They said of the incumbent that he, quote, has not maintained enough contact with school officials in the district. One reason that we believe that after 12 years, it's time for a change. I have the background that the County Board of Education needs. The county educates at-risk and special needs children. I have served on the boards of Social Advocates for Youth and the Emergency Housing Consortium, which serve children in foster care, homeless shelters, and juvenile hall. My wife teaches developmentally disabled adults, so I understand the students who need special education programs. The County Office of Education ensures that all public school teachers have the proper training and credentials. As the husband of a teacher and an education major in college myself, I understand the importance of well-prepared teachers. The county office also provides financial services and oversight to our local school districts. With over 15 years of corporate and nonprofit accounting experience, I will work hard to ensure the fiscal stability of our schools. It's time we have better representation on the county board. It's time for a change. Please vote for me, Charlie Ahern. Thank you.
Thank you. Lynette Lee Ng.
Thank you. I want to thank everyone for taking the time out to come and learn more about the County Board of Education. I'm Lynette Lee Ng, and I believe that I have the experience and vitality to be a dynamic member of the County Board of Education. I have proven leadership. I have devoted much of my life to serving the public and have concentrated on improving opportunities for children in our community. For the past few years, I've served on the Los Altos Park Arts and Recreation Commission. I currently serve as chairperson. On this commission, I have worked to increase after-school enrichment programs for children, to renovate parks, and to broaden the reach of educational programs for all. I initiated a working group with the Santa Clara County Office of Education on a mediation program, a program which will provide an opportunity for parents, teachers, and community members who may need assistance regarding school-related issues. I have also worked as an education chairperson for the League of Women Voters, a board member of a parent advocacy program, and a local volunteer mediator. I am an active parent volunteer who has worked with my local schools. I'm a parent with an elementary school child and a middle school child. And with children in the school district, I truly understand what is going on in the day-to-day operations of the school districts. My background in organization behavior from the University of San Francisco and the completion of a citywide leadership program gave me fundamentals to serve and to solidly contribute to the County Board of Education. Thank you so much.
Thank you. T.N. Ho.
Good evening. Thank you for staying at this forum, and thank you for watching this program. My name is T.N. Ho. I'm the current incumbent member of the Santa Clara County Board of Education and also the board president. I have to start by regretfully saying that one of my opponents is valuing sociability over capability. I like to remind everybody we are here to elect a member of the governing board for the County Office of Education, an organization with $250 million of annual budget. I'd like to use the rest of this time to say what this County Office of Education does, because I believe my opponents probably do not know what the County Office of Education does. We have some statutory requirements. We oversee local school financial budgets. We also educate children under custody in juvenile hall. We also decide school district boundaries. We also oversee performance of local districts as required by No Child Left Behind Act. We also serve as appellate body for expulsion appeals, for interdistrict transfer appeals, for charter school application petition appeals. Out of the $250 million of budget, $100 million of the county office budget is spent in special education, $20 million is spent in Head Start program, $8 million is spent in migrant education, and $7 million or so, which is about 2% or 3% of our overall budget, is spent in alternative schools. This is a very complicated position, a position with a lot of responsibilities. I think somebody with business experience, with experience of managing multi-million dollars, is the one that is capable to handle this job. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we come to the questions. First question, by the way, I will be calling on you in a random order. First question says, today's Mercury News editorial describes several reforms on charter schools. What are your thoughts on their recommendations? And we'll start the answers this time with Ms. Ng.
Regarding the reforms on charter schools, Samitian just recently held a hearing regarding charter schools in which he brought charter school population as well as your local public school population together. The intent of charter schools was to help create competition as well, and to try to bring educators together and to work together, bringing ideas and forwarding choice into our schools. But unfortunately, what has occurred is some adversary relationships with these charter schools. Regarding the reforms, they are working to look at what legislation can be introduced to bring about such reforms. I know that there are concerns regarding the amount of charter schools that are being brought forward when there are school closures. Many school districts are closing schools because of budgetary reasons. And when that occurs and a charter school petition arises, that does affect local school district budgets, and that is a concern. So with some of the legislation that would come about, I think our role is to make sure that school districts work together with the organization, the chartering organizations, and making them aware on how they can work better with our local school districts. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Ahern?
Oh, okay. Yeah, the charter issue has been pretty contentious with a lot of the local school districts. Generally, in the recent past, the local school boards have been rejecting most charter applications. And their issue is the funding, of course, because when a charter school takes children out of the comprehensive high schools or the traditional schools, the school district loses control of the funding. And so the local school districts have generally resisted that. And so there are proposals to compensate the local districts for a time, possibly for a year, possibly for a few years, so that they can adjust to any significant decrease in enrollment. So for example, there was recently a charter proposal to take about 400 to 700 students out of the Campbell High School District, which I believe has about 1,700 students. So you can see that's a pretty significant shift in population. The other issue is the cost that's happening right now that affects the Office of Education, the County Office of Education. They spend a lot of staff time reviewing the charter applications before the board makes a decision on them, and the county board is not being reimbursed in any way for all the work that they're putting into, so that's a significant issue. And the other is building funds. The school districts not only have to provide per pupil funding, they have to provide facilities, and I hope that Proposition 1D does provide some funding for charter buildings, so hopefully that'll pass.
Thank you. Time's up. Mr. Ho.
Thank you. Charter school has been a very hot topic, charter school appeals in the County Board of Education. We've had like 5 meetings in a row that we have packed rooms. And there are two sides for the charter school. The parents who are not very satisfied with some of the school district's performances, and the school districts are very adamant that because forming a charter school would take funding away from the local school districts. The law so far has 9 points for chartering authorizing agency to evaluate. However, some of the areas do need some clarifications, a more detailed definition. One of them is the public agency's oversight responsibilities, what exactly should be done by the chartering agency, and they are not really clearly defined. Sometimes the public agency would err on doing more. These things need to be corrected, and the funding for oversight, Mr. Ahern says there's no funding, which is incorrect. The law says 1% for the county office. If it is local school district, it's 3%. Neither one is enough, but that's what the law says right now. If that's the case, we need to know when and how much we're going to do. But anyway, it is a responsibility for the charter school to walk their talk. It's easy to apply and talk, but I think we need to know whether they are really doing what they're doing. Thank you.
Thank you. This question asks, did you turn in your candidate statement when filing? If so, why, or if not, why not? And we'll start the answers with Mr. Ho.
I did not turn in a statement. Actually, in the last 2 years, I have been protesting this unfair charge to school board members for filing statements. The decision as to how much to file the filing fee it rests upon the county supervisors. The county supervisors makes $140,000 a year, and their filing fee is only $1,000 and change. A school board member, take for instance, we just had the Fremont Union High School Board debate here. Their stipend is $250 a month. Their filing fee is over $3,000. For this seat that I'm holding right now, our filing fee is $4,000. I have been pushing for policy changes at the County Office of Education because I believe that it's detrimental to the process of democracy. To put up a $4,000 fee to run for a seat that the stipend is only $400 something. I think that's just not right. I know I'm taking a risk, but I think this is a risk that I have to fight and want to fight for democracy. I think democracy speaks a lot more than what this $4,000 speaks for. I am not here to buy an election. I'm here to serve the people. Thank you very much.
Ms. Ng.
I did file a statement and then I had withdrawn it. A campaign is about getting the word out, getting your point across to the community. I do agree with some of the points that Mr. Ho made.
Thank you.
4 years ago, the fee was a lot less. It had gone up more than 100% this year. And it's about being responsible. It's your opportunity to determine how you want to spend your money in getting the word out. With a lot of propositions and a lot of measures in the ballot statement book this year, I thought that the statement might get overlooked. So it's about budgeting. So it's up to us to determine how we want to budget our funds to get the word out to the community and making our points known. And, I really feel that if we're able to get our message across, that's the important thing. We should not be criticized, but what we should work together is look at what local school districts are doing to supplement some of the amounts that are given to school district candidates. I think we need to make things equitable to get the message across, to allow all candidates to be equitably represented. So I would encourage, once again, our supervisors to look at how we can have the costs, like you said, equitably, supplemented.
Thank you. Mr. Ahern?
Thank you.
Yes, I did file a ballot statement, and so I'm the only person to have a statement in the official registrar's handbook. And, I'll tell you, it was a hard decision to stand there, and the actual amount was $2,700 or $3,700 between Santa Clara County and Santa Cruz County. But I really felt that it was important to make sure that all voters got some information. What tends to happen during a campaign is you'll see a lot of mailers go out and they're very focused. And this was an opportunity to make sure that all the voters got the same message. And so I thought it was pretty important to do that. Last year, the Santa Clara County Civil Grand Jury did an investigation on the ballot fees that school board candidates have to pay. And one of the things they did was a survey of voters, and they found that approximately 2/3 of all voters felt that a candidate just didn't care much if they weren't willing to pay a couple $1,000 to get a ballot statement in. And I haven't heard anything about how we would vet candidates. I don't know how we would get those candidates into the ballot, and it would get pretty expensive. A few years ago, I think we had the recall election where I think there were 150 people running for governor. I don't know if we'd have that many people running for County Board of Education, but I don't think that a small fee is that much of a problem. So.
Okay, thank you. Sorry we don't have time for a lot more questions, but this is going to be the last question before your closing statements. How do you reach... How do you reach seasonal migrant children? How effective do you think this is? And we'll start with Mr. Ahern.
Seasonal migrant children. Well, that's part of the program that the county is involved in. I believe there's a consortium of 5 counties that provide educational services to the children of migrant farm workers. And basically, you got to get out there and be where they are. So this particular district, we do have, there's one district, a small district called Montebello, which I think has an enrollment of about 45 students that some of them are children of farm workers because their parents work in some of the vineyards up here in the hills, right outside of Cupertino. And, so you have to work with those folks. But again, in this particular district, we don't have a lot of that. And again, the county, as I understand it, the Santa Clara County itself does not run the program. It's part of a consortium with 4 other counties in this area.
Okay, Mr. Ho?
Unfortunately, again, Mr. Ahern is incorrect in his information. The migrant education run by the County Office of Education in Santa Clara actually covers 6 counties. It's not a consortium. We are helping other counties to do this. The problem with migrant kids is that their parents move from one story berry field to another. There's no county boundaries. And they go to schools. They go to one school in this county, and in a couple months they go to another school in another county. There's no connection. The county migrant education is to provide counseling to these children so that they know, and to the parents, so that they know when they move from one county to another county, they still have a school to go to. I think that's one of the best things that this county does, because these are our peripheral members of the society, and we need to help them whenever we can. Thank you.
Ms. Ng.
I agree with Mr. Ho. We have a great migrant workers program. We do also have a high percentage of our population that participate in this migrant workers program. What the County Office of Education also offers is a program so these students are tracked. So when they transfer schools, their records are transferred with them. So you have a smooth transition in programming. I think it's a great program. I think also that tracking method is something that is going to be established statewide, and there's a bill in place, but it's not funded yet. And so once again, it's one of the great programs that the County Office of Education offers. And once again, I have to disagree with Mr. Ahern.
I was told I could have a little flexibility with the time, so I'm going to ask one more question before we get to closing statements. Tell us one or two most important issues facing the county board, and how would you deal with it or them? And we're going to start these answers with Ms. Ng.
Okay, one or two issues with the County Board of Education, and how would we deal with them?
How would you deal with them? Uh-huh.
Okay, one or two issues. Okay, one of the issues is how do we ensure that every child is equitably or has quality education brought to them. And we have a large population that is within the lower decile school district, and we have to make sure that they are not overlooked. How would we deal with it? Well, we do have the Williams Act in place, in which we ensure that these children have opportunities to make sure that their facilities and their equipment and their textbooks are equitable to other school districts. So one, that's something we need to ensure. The other thing is bringing preschool to all. I think that preschool is a big we have wonderful Head Start programs, and we have wonderful programs to help prepare children to succeed. And preschool is going to be a program that we need to concentrate on. And we need to make sure that our county superintendent has an opportunity to continue to advocate for funding needed for such programs. So those are, I think, the two biggest issues coming up, and that's how I think we can continue to address them. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Ho?
Thank you. We face many issues that we need to resolve. I think two of the more prominent issues that we face right now is, number one, in Head Start. Head Start is a great program. It's funded by the federal government. Many of us probably don't even know. It's not funded by the Department of Education, but funded by the Department of HHR, Human Resources, Housing and Human Resources. However, they have a very strict poverty line. They think a family in Silicon Valley, the poverty line actually is the same as some family living in Mississippi or Louisiana. And we all know that's not true. We've been we've been contacting our legislators in the federal government, MyConda and SU, try to push this through so that they at least index our local cost of living so that we have a higher poverty level to include more families, to bring them to preschool level education so that when they are ready, when they are at kindergarten age, they're ready for school. But because of federal politics, most congressmen outside of California are not supporting this proposal. But I think it has to be fair so that our children, who are the families who live here, can qualify with a higher income level. Thank you.
And Mr. Ahern.
You know, one of the things that I've come across in talking to people during this campaign is a sense of frustration at the local school board level. A lot of school board members have said that they don't feel that the county is paying attention to them. They don't feel that they are represented well on the board. I've had a school board president, local school board president, tell me that in the 8 years she's been on the school board, she's never met the incumbent, and he's never attended one of her school board meetings. And so they feel that they're, to some extent, because of issues like expulsion appeals or charter school appeals, issues like that they don't really understand what's going on the board. They don't feel that they're being represented. So one of the things that I want to do is work a lot more closely with the local school district board members and build a good working relationship. I think that's what we need to do. I think that the county board not only can provide things like the oversight, the financial oversight, and repeals in terms of expulsions and charters, but I think the county board needs to provide some leadership to all of the local school district boards, and I think that's one of the things that I want to do, is to work much more closely with local school districts, the boards, and their staff.
Thank you. And now we come to the closing statements, and we'll do it in the reverse order of the opening statement. So we'll start with T.N. Ho.
I am a believer that all public agencies should stretch your tax dollars to the maximum level. I think we need to regionalize a lot of the programs that the local districts cannot afford to do because of the cost of doing these things. I have attended local school board meetings. Unfortunately, I heard some board president didn't pay attention to who's sitting down there and said never met me. That's very regrettable. I work well as a team member for the county board, for the whole county office. If you ask people who know me, who worked with me, then you know why my fellow board members on the county board all endorse me, and why the county teachers union also endorse me. The staff and my fellow board members all think that I'm a capable board member, and I have very good characters. I have very good character that I think in the time, like a campaign, it also says a lot about a candidate or their volunteers' characters. My campaign signs has been ripped apart and torn and stolen over and over at many, many sites. I don't know who did it, but I would like to ask everybody to consider character, capability. These are two factors way over sociability. Thank you very much.
Lynette Lee Ng.
Well, the county board is a board that is overlooked, and many people were not aware that the county board existed until this election. So I'm glad that we've had an opportunity to educate the community on what the county board does, and thank you once again all for coming tonight. Through my involvement and continued efforts through organizations such as the League of Women Voters, my participation on my park commission, and through collaborative efforts, we must continue to maintain a focus on keeping education a priority. I will continue to work together with our representatives and inform them on the status of the educational needs in our communities. We must work collaboratively to advocate for the necessary funds. So please remember to vote for me, and I'm dedicated to excellence in education. And I'd like to say that, once again, education is important, and we all feel that way, all three of us. And no matter what happens, I hope we can all continue to work together in bringing forth new programs and quality programs. So thank you.
And Charlie Ahern.
Okay. Again, I want to thank the League of Women Voters and the City of Cupertino for hosting us this evening, and I want to thank all of you for staying for this forum. If you haven't had a chance to visit the League's smartvoter.org website, I would urge you to check it out to get a little bit more information about the candidates and the issues that are coming up on the November ballot. And again, I just want to remind you that when I'm elected to the County Board of Education, my goals will be to build strong relationships with local school boards and parent groups, advocate for at-risk and special needs children, encourage innovation in our classrooms, and ensure the fiscal stability of our schools. I've been endorsed by the San Jose Mercury News, the school board presidents in Cupertino and Los Altos, members of the Fremont Union High School District Board, Congressman Mike Honda, and Assemblymember Sally Lieber. I will work with them so that our children and grandchildren have the resources they need to succeed. It's time for a change. Please vote for me, Charlie Ahern. Thank you.
Thank you, candidates. Mr. Ahern stole my closing lines. I was going to remind you that you can find more information on these candidates, all the candidates, and the ballot measures on your ballot by going to smartvoter.org. That's the website of the League of Women Voters. In this contest, you vote for one person, and do remember to vote on November 7th.
Thank you.